I got interested in music from a really young age. I think I was just always inspired by listening to music and by artists in general. I always looked up to artists.
That's cool. What instrument did you play?
I originally played piano growing up. I started out in bands playing keyboard, and it really was never what I felt like fit right. And I always was interested in playing the drummer in any of my band's drum set. So when they'd go on a break to get a water or something, I'd go and sit down on the kit and I'd just start playing. And I decided I was gonna play for 3 hours a day, every day.
Oh, so now you want to practice.
So now I wanted to practice.
Wow. So did your parents rue the day they got you a drum set? Like, did they have any idea how loud a real kit would be?
Did you know the average person spends 3 hours a week doing laundry? If you rock with this podcast, you're probably like, why settle for being average? This episode sponsored by Rinse. It's time to be great.
All right, we're back. We're here with the illustrious Ben Dorenfeld, and he's here to talk about what he does, what he loves to do, how he started and what he loves to do, and you'll never really figure out how he got to where he is until he breaks down where he came from. Interesting story. Ben, welcome.
What's up, Tyson? Thanks for having me, man.
Dude, it's a pleasure. Total pleasure. So we were talking a little bit earlier about kind of how you ended up where you are. But first, let's tell everybody out there in TV land where you are, what you do, what's your title, and then we'll rewind and see how you got there.
Cool. Well, my name's Ben. I'm the director of music at Anomaly, which is a creative agency based here in New York. We have offices worldwide. I oversee all music supervision, original music production, licensing, negotiations, and artist brand partnerships for the agency and all of our clients.
That's awesome. You wear a lot of hats, my friend.
There's a few of them, yeah.
That's amazing. Well, it didn't always start out like that. So walk me through kind of like your first introductory to what you wanted to do career-wise, what you were into. You said earlier to me, I was in music in a different way before. So kind of explain your journey and like, don't leave out anything. Take me all the way back to little Ben.
Yeah. We can go way back. You know, I got interested in music from a really young age. I think I was just, always inspired by listening to music and by artists in general. I always looked up to artists. I was also a visual artist myself growing up. So music and drawing were, two of my passions. And I remember drawing a lot of the bands and different artists that I was into all the time. It wasn't until middle school. That middle school was probably the point at which I really dove in further. I was going to shows with friends. I formed a few bands with friends at the time and grew further into different subcultures in music throughout high school.
That's cool. What instrument did you play?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I originally played piano growing up. Piano was the first instrument, I learned. My parents got me piano lessons when I was younger. Thanks to them. I never wanted to practice though. So I spent time with some really great teachers, some really patient teachers, and I never practiced. I started out in bands playing keyboard, and it really was never what I felt like fit right. And I always was interested in playing the drummer in any of my band's drum set. So when they'd go on a break to get a water or something, I'd go and sit down on the kit, and I'd just start playing.
I love it.
And so it wasn't until my senior year of high school that my parents got me a kit for my graduation.
Okay.
And I decided I was gonna play for 3 hours a day, every day.
Oh, so now you want to practice.
So now I wanted to practice.
Wow.
And I played every day from the time I got that kit until I went to college.
Wow.
So by the time I went to college, I considered myself a drummer. So I actually left, my hometown probably still known as a piano player, keyboardist, what have you. I was never, I don't think, great at it, but I left my hometown as something and went to college as something else. So immediately when I got to college, I kind of declared myself a drummer, and I actually formed a band pretty quickly with some guys I still play with to this day.
No way.
And I think we all got better, and progressed as a band, progressed as musicians throughout, our tenure together playing. And so,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
drums that's a long kind of background, but
I love
drums
that.
is my instrument. Yeah, and
No,
I'm
that-
very passionate about them.
It's interesting you say that, and we'll get into it later, but some of the things that you've said to me when we've worked together, the little things, I could pick up that there was a musicality somewhere in there, which isn't always the case for what you do in terms of your role at an agency. It's not required.
No.
Right? But it certainly helps, and it helps the conversation when communicating with other musicians when you're trying to get something, figured out when it comes to, how you're going to craft something to film.
Yeah.
So did your parents rue the day they got you a drum set? Like, did they have any idea how loud a real kit would be in the home?
I don't know. I mean, we had it in the basement,
Okay.
and I remember our neighbors, they would call sometimes. They would call my mom and say, like, we can hear it,
Yeah.
My parents were always super cool about it.
It's amazing.
Which is wild. I mean, it definitely must have been loud, but I think they were happy that I found something that I was so passionate about.
And would practice.
And would practice, and I mean, it's that saying that practice makes perfect. I mean, I don't know if anything's perfect. That's kind of maybe an overstatement for anything in this world, but it does get you somewhere for sure.
Yeah, it's
And
the 10,000 hours Gladwell
I think-
theory. I think there's truth to that for sure.
Yeah, I think the dedication is what is what really leads to
Getting the reps in.
yes.
Okay, so you go to college now. You're an aspiring musician. You're forming bands, but you're in college for what specifically?
Right. So I went to college. I went to a small liberal arts school called Skidmore College in upstate New York, and I think I didn't really know what I wanted to major in or what I was interested in even pursuing in my life.
Right.
Which in hindsight, I think actually did me well then. I wasn't really concerned. Now I think I'm more concerned with different things. Then I wasn't. I was sort of like following what just felt maybe intuitively right. And so I was, like I said, I was always a visual artist. That was, interestingly enough, more of my thing growing up. And so, but I wanted something practical. I kind of wanted a little of everything. And I felt like business was going to be the practical thing to major in. I didn't, see myself as a math person or a writing person. And, I wasn't sure if I really wanted to dive, fully into the studio art world. So I majored in business management, marketing, and I minored in studio art. And then the music thing was always kind of like off to the side. That was like a passion that was outside of my studies. So I was, booking concerts for the school. I was playing in bands. I DJ'd, and I eventually became the program director for our college radio station. So music was sort of like always around me, always in discussions, playing music. It was kind of like what was going on outside of class.
So while you're doing all that, are you looking at, okay, I really love this music thing. What could I do as a musician or something in the music field while you're taking courses in business and the art stuff? Like, are you thinking that, hey, maybe there's a pathway to music at this point?
A bit. I think, I was spending a lot of time when I was booking shows. I was connecting with agents a lot. Booking agents.
Live booking agents, right?
Correct.
Venues.
Correct.
Okay.
Like the live entertainment space. So folks at, your CAAs of the world. And I was fascinated by that. I think it was just first of all, it was like a direct contact for me into the professional world. So there was that. And then the second aspect was, I think I was fascinated with curating a roster of talent. I think like a lot of kids, I don't know today, to be honest, but maybe it still is the case. I think there's when I was growing up, when I was in college too, a lot of kids interested in music, when it came to the business side, were interested in A&R, or cultivating sort of like, an artist roster, signing talent, bringing up talent, artist development. I was too, and I think my connection to the live space made it so that that's where I felt like I could, make a leap towards after school.
Okay. So while you're in school, it's like, okay, I'm either going to do this, or what was the other plan? So you're doing visual art stuff, you're doing the business thing. Did you have another idea of what you wanted to go into?
Graphic design was another route. It's funny because I have so many friends who are designers and totally enamored by what they do and love design and really appreciate it. And I feel like there's like a part of me that will always be connected to that type of individual. I think there's something, in me where that does exist, but it didn't stand out to me when I was in school. And I had spoken to some designers. I don't think, maybe I just never talked to the right ones, but I didn't really feel totally
You found the jaded ones?
I never really felt totally inspired by it, unfortunately. The inspiration that I think needed to sort of propel me to focus on that path.
Yeah. So then music was the thing that you were going for.
Music was the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, music was the thing.
So did you finish college?
Yes.
Okay, so you did 4 years?
I did 4 years.
4 years in college, you're ready to move on. What's the very first thing that you do?
Well, the very first thing I do after college is I actually stay in the town where I went to school. It's a big, it becomes lively in the summer. It's known for its racetrack for horses, and so I think
This is upstate New York?
This is upstate New York.
Okay.
This is in Saratoga Springs.
Okay.
And I think some friends and I decided that we were going to remain up there for a bit and work some odd jobs for the summer. And so that was, sort of like a segue from college into the real, the world post-college.
Right. The income earning world of post-college life.
Right. Ultimately, that has to come to an end. So I eventually moved back in with my parents after a few months, at that point.
And this is back in?
This is back in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah, this is back in Massachusetts.
All right.
And so, ultimately I was applying for different jobs in New York. My dad, he's a huge influence on me. He worked in music a long time ago, and then became a professor in that space. And so ultimately, I landed my first job through a former student of his, who was willing to put my resume forward for an assistant gig at ICM, which is now CAA.
Okay. And what does CAA stand for? Do you remember?
Creative Artists Agency.
Great.
It was International Creative Management. Now it's, creative. Well, there was a CAA back then too, but now they absorbed ICM.
And changed the name. Okay.
So that was, so I remember I went, actually it was funny, I was up for an interview and I was taking the bus down to New York for the interview, and they called me and I was literally on the bus and they said, well, we already filled that role. And I was like, well, I'm on my way. And they're like, well, we have another role that is going to be opening up, so you can interview for that one when you get here. And so I said, okay, I'll do whatever. I really just wanted to move to New York. That's what I wanted to do. I think it was, this was sort of something that I thought I was interested in, but my goal was just to move to New York because my friends were moving to New York. That was a place that, or it is a place that was a destination. And, my friends to this day are still like, they're one of the most valuable aspects of my life, So, I wanted to go where they were going. So if I could get a job, if there was something that could kind of like connect me to doing something I think I wanted to do, and I could live in New York, that was it. I just figured I would take it.
Right. Those are the two things on your need list. I need to be close to my friends and be able to afford to live in New York.
Yeah, exactly. So I came down, I did the interview. I thought it went terribly. It's funny because talking about this now, so I haven't even thought of some of it in a long time. I mean, I know how I know the highlights,
Sure.
but I'm like thinking about the details. And
I want the details.
And so
Yeah,
I remember leaving the interview, and I remember thinking, oh, that did not go right. I was discouraged because I kind of felt like, well, that's not going to be it. Ultimately it was. They did call me.
Do you remember what the position was? What the role was?
The position was agent assistant.
What was the first position that they gave to somebody else?
Same position, but working for a different agent. Over at the company.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey there. Not used to hearing things at this speed, huh? We get it. You're pressed for time. That's why Rinse hand delivers expertly cleaned laundry to your door. To save you time. Time you can use to explore whole new versions of you. Like right lane driving you. Or right lane windows down, enjoy the ride you. Maybe even listening to podcasts at a slower speed you. Maybe not. It's up to you. Rinse. It's time to be great.
Yeah.
So you made it. You're in CAA, the biggest artist booking agency in the world.
Yep.
You're in New York.
Yep.
How was that job?
Hard. It was, I still have these conversations with people to this day. I think that job and what I did shortly after, which was still in the industry, had such a profound impact on me today. I learned so much so quickly. It was, I think when you're young, just starting out, it's interesting because I think technically there should be less pressure. You're in an assistant role, figure out a way to do what you're doing, enjoy life, and try to kind of move up the ladder. But I found it to be, it was not what I wanted to do. And I say that with all the respect in the world for the folks who are in that world.
Sure.
There was someone who started the same week I started, and she became one of my friends during my time there, and she is a wildly successful agent today.
Wow.
She's still there. Well, now it's CAA. I think she's still there. I couldn't hack it. It wasn't for me. Lots of phone calls.
Was it the lack of creativity?
It was.
Okay.
And and I wanted to get there, but I think that I really, I didn't really know. I didn't know enough about just what's out there in the world. Like what I didn't know what I was even really looking for, and what this place would be like, and how that compares to other places, how that compares to a place like Anomaly, know. And I say this all from my perspective, right? So it's not to disparage, it's not to drag the industry or different companies, different industries. It's all what works for you. For me, I realized working in that space, I think I really was trying to find a more balance between business and creativity, which to this day I've never figured out if I'm more one way or another. So I've kind of accepted that I'm sort of somewhere in the middle. Some days I feel like I'm just totally a creative person and I maybe should be doing something more creative. Other days I think like, wow, like I'm really more of a business person and I could have maybe done X, Y, or Z and just gone deep into that whole world in a different capacity,
Fascinating.
But at the end of the day, I think I found something that's actually perfectly suited for myself, and it is a balance of the two. So that is what I was looking for more of when I was there.
Okay, so then you get to the realization that this isn't the right spot for you, and you start putting the feelers out, you start looking for something different?
Yeah, well, to go take a step back, before I really did that, I was invited by a few folks that I really liked at that agency to break off of there and start a new booking agency.
Oh, okay.
So I remain in the live entertainment world. I was in that space for about 3 years. It's funny because looking back, it feels like a lot longer.
Yeah.
But I was at ICM for about 1.5 years. I broke off of there to help start a new agency for another 1.5 years. I felt like, the people I was starting it with, I really felt like I aligned with them. And it was an opportunity on the table to go and do it.
Yeah.
So it was, I did it, and ultimately, again, it didn't, for different reasons, and some of the same, still not the right fit.
Right.
That's when I started to look for something else.
Okay.
That all unfolded firstly through one of my most dear friends from college. She, at the time, was working at a music house. As a producer. And I remember her, I don't know when it first started exactly, but I remember she invited me to a party downtown at their studio space. They were doing all of these director series parties where I think they had a director host the party, or the director was featured. They might have shown certain clips from the director. It's hard for me to remember exactly what they were, but they were a director series.
That's cool.
This one was featuring Michel Gondry.
Okay.
And so she said, you got to come to this party. We're throwing this thing. I was like, cool. I was like 23, right? So, still to this day, I get invited to stuff in New York. It's like, you just go. It's New York City. There's always something amazing in this place to see and hear. I digress. I went to this party, and I remember I was so enamored by, just the people there, her coworkers. And I remember thinking, like, whatever you're doing, like, I want to be a part of this. And that was sort of like my entryway into the whole world, where I learned about what she did. I learned a little bit about agencies.
Sure.
And I just remember thinking, wow, this is, it just sounds really exciting.
And this was all within the context of advertising?
Yeah. It firstly was just her company and her explaining what she did. And then somewhere down the road, she introduced me to a guy who worked at an ad agency.
Okay.
And, I really took a liking to him. I think it was mutual. We're still in touch to this day.
Well, then there you go.
So I got to know him, and I think I made an effort to connect with him. Ultimately I went, and I want to take a step even back, because it's interesting how this world, I think I had an interest in it prior to my friend, but I didn't really know it existed, right? So I got to know him. I went to him for advice, once, and I said, like, look, I'm just interested in doing something else, and he said, well, there's a job opening at my company. You should apply for it,
Wow.
So, speed it up. It's not even really speeding it up. It's pretty much just, I applied. I met his manager.
What was the position?
The position was associate music producer
At
an ad agency
Okay.
called Gray.
Okay.
And I applied for the role, and I interviewed with his manager, who's a guy I'm still in touch with today, and they took a chance on me.
Wow.
I remember I was like, all I want to do is get that job. I didn't care. I didn't care about the money. I just knew when I went in to do that interview, I really aligned. I did the interview with his manager, and I was like, okay, I really just connect with this guy. And
You wanted to be there.
Felt like someone who could be a mentor. I didn't really have that. I didn't find that person in New York. Again, not something people talk about, mentorship. I didn't really think about any of this stuff.
Sure.
None of this was top of mind. I was kind of just like, I feel like I was always like kind of day of trying to figure out my life. And so it wasn't until I met him that I was like, wow, I really, it's really interesting what these people are doing. And they seem really passionate about it. I was like, this is it. I got to get this thing, you know.
It's amazing.
And that's the rest is history. So I started there, you know.
And so how long were you there in terms of being under the tutelage of this mentor that you have now?
I was there for 4 years.
And did they stay the whole time you were there? So you got to learn from them?
They were there the whole time that I
That's
was
great.
there. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so it was a great time. I mean, the interesting thing about what I do, you know, to take a step back, I don't know when the appropriate time to talk about it is, but you know, it's like I never knew what I do to this day existed when I was younger, when I was in college even, and obviously even when I was outside of college, because it took me, you know, going out with my friend from college to truly learn once we were here in New York about this whole industry.
Yeah.
But growing up, you know, I was always enamored by music in different media spaces. I remember playing Grand Theft Auto all the time, you know, as a kid, and listening to the music, you know, when I'd play the video game. And I'd think about what an impact that had on the game. You know, what the gameplay would be like without that music. And I think I just didn't, you know, understand that there's a team responsible for making that happen. Same thing goes for the film world. I always look back to the film Lost in Translation. I remember seeing that when I was in high school and thinking, you know, well, that's when I think I kind of thought about it more, like there's got to be a person responsible for these choices. I think that's where I heard the band My Bloody Valentine for the first time. I was introduced to Square Pusher for the first time via that film, Death in Vegas, the Jesus and Mary chain, I think as well. You know, so, and that was all through a movie, you know, and so, you know, I kind of like had this interest in music supervision before I knew what it actually was.
Yeah, and you're not the first person that said that, because you're right. The whole music producer, music supervisor, music anything, that doesn't show up at the job fair.
No.
You know, that's not a very specific course. I mean, it's becoming more prominent now in post-secondary education to find certain schools that offer a section of this, but it's not the sexy thing that everybody, you know, thinks that it is. Once you're in the industry, it's not there in the time when people are trying to decide what they want to do with their education. So on that note, how important do you think your education was to you being able to land the job at CAA or ICM, and then your first job at Gray? Did they talk about your education? Was that a concern for them?
I think it was certainly something looked at on paper. You know, like I graduated with honors, I went to this school, I was a part of extracurricular activities and so forth. I think the connections I had made a big deal, you know. I think they put me, you know, I was privileged to have those connections, you know, up front into the industry, you know, that others might not have.
Right.
And I think that, you know, that who you know can, you know, take you really far. I think it's a balance, though. I think that, you know, for me, if we're talking about the whole education aspect, I think it's a growth period, really.
Sure.
You know, I mean, obviously you have to, if you're going to go to school, you know, and pay the way to go and be there, you know, go to class, do, you know, do it, right?
Do the work, yeah.
But I think about my friend who, you know, introduced me to this world. Yeah. She's the reason that, you know, I'm here. There's other people who I have to thank, who I mentioned, but she's the initial reason. And I met her at school. So I like to tell people, you know, I've spoken at schools, I've done classes, and I you know, I say the person sitting next to you or the person you meet at a party or living next door to you, that could be the person that, you know, ultimately ends up jump-starting your career.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the part that I think is always the line that we're trying to kind of figure out when it comes to, myself as a parent, then other parents out there, kids who are still trying to figure it out. I have a real passion for that age where, the transition from being this little human that has somebody making decisions for them all the time to now they've got to make their own decisions, and how those decisions affect the trajectory of their life and their future. Having a conversation about what is required in terms of your education for what you want to do later. Everybody that I've spoken to, just about everybody I've spoken to in this platform, the education that they got has nothing to do with what they're doing today. When it comes to the actual job title, position versus education, but they always say that there's something in there that they still use to this day, or something that they learned, either character or growth or friendships, relationships. Those were the things that mattered the most. And even some of the people that I'm speaking to now, who are in the position of hiring, they're not even concerned that much with what's on paper.
Well, I think, and I had a manager way back when, who said to me when I was working summer in college, you can, in college, you can fail. I mean, you could get a B, you could get a C, you could fail a class. I mean, I don't know. I didn't fail any classes, so I don't know what happens then. But I mean, it doesn't matter really, right? Sure. But if you're on the job and you're not getting it done, that might cost you your job.
Yeah.
So I think it's a different world. That's why people use the term. It's like, oh, you're out in the real world, because college isn't that.
Right.
I think it is what you were saying. I don't know the exact wording, but it's a growth period. I was saying that too. It's a growth period, and I think, but that might not be the path that you take. There might be a different growth period that you have, know? And so, I know, like, when I got out, when I went to ICM, it was like that was the real world, and I think back to that, and that I think taught me, regardless of like what I wanted to do, I learned so much from that experience that I still, take that with me today.
Do you, you're in a pretty senior position now. I'm coming to you for a job, or you're posting for a position at the place that you work now for maybe a junior music supervisor, music producer. What are you looking for? Are you looking at the resume in terms of where somebody's been, if they're brand new, where they went to school? How important is the education component for you when it comes to your hiring for a position like what your position is?
I'm curious about it probably, but that's not...
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much will that affect your decision on whether or not you hire that person?
Maybe, I've never been good with the 1 to 10 scale, but
1 to 3.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe like I don't know, a 4, or maybe a 4 or something around there. That's what comes to mind. Okay. Yeah, 4 or 5.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And so then, what is it that you would look for beyond what the education is?
Right. I really look for enthusiasm in people. I think that I'm overall a pretty enthusiastic person. I think enthusiasm and curiosity.
My favorite word.
Yeah.
Curiosity. Cool.
I think that is. I think those two aspects, like, really, I mean, it's just if you have a level of enthusiasm and curiosity for something, it's kind of like, I think it betters you. It makes you constantly trying to learn and engage. I think people, will want to work with you, more if you have those qualities. And our industry is a people-oriented industry,
right?
Especially where I'm at. I work with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of different people, but I need to work with all of them. And so I think having that level of enthusiasm and curiosity, first and foremost, for, you know, the role, but also working with people. You know, it sounds kind of trivial, but, you know, and this is, I can only speak for my role, but, you know, yeah, day to day, there's just, there's several people I'm interacting with.
That's good.
Oftentimes in person. So if you're not interested in that, then, you know, it might be a challenging environment to be in. Now, there's the actual role. So, you know, the level of excitement for music, you know,
it's good.
that's there.
Yeah, that seems like the obvious one.
It's obvious, or why would
Right.
you be applying for that role,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So I would think that would be, you know, obvious, but that would be a discussion we'd have as to like what your interest is in music, you know, and then maybe like, yeah, I mean, advertising too, you know, the creative space in advertising, like, why do you want to be in this
Name me your
world?
top 3 favorite advertising jingles of all time.
Right. I mean, it's that would not be a requirement for me.
No.
You know, I don't know. It's hard for me to look. I can't really recall even the interview I had, you know, to go into this industry. I don't know if that was asked. I don't, you know, I look back and it was like such a good experience that I don't really remember being totally like grilled on anything. And so I think like paying it forward, it just is like, you know, why do you want to do this? You know, are you excited about doing this? You know, and I think that if that person has that level of excitement, enthusiasm, and curiosity, all those things will align. They'll have an interest in advertising, in music, in the ins and outs. They'll maybe have a little bit of knowledge into what we do already, what I do. So it'll all fall into place.
That's good. Okay, so you did a 4-year stint at Gray, and then where did you go next?
Anomaly, where I am.
Which is where you are now.
Where I am today, yeah.
That's awesome. How many years you been there now?
Over 6.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you talked about having to work with a lot of people there, and you know, when you define your role, there's a lot of stuff that you do within that role. How difficult is it doing it just one dude in an agency of over 200 people?
I don't, you know, like what you know is what you know. So this is what I know. This is what I've known for a while. And I love what I do. I love, you know, working there. The people, I always talk about the people, you know, it makes such a big difference, I think, in, you know, in where you work. I would say this to, you know, younger folks getting into the industry, this industry or a different industry, you know, aligning with the values of a company and also the people who work there. If you can do that, then I think you will succeed because you will enjoy being there. So again, I digress, but I think for me, you know, I'm in a space, I'm in an environment where there are a lot of inspiring people to work with. There are a lot of fun people to work with. And I think I feel really fortunate to be, you know, in that kind of space. So I don't, you know, I guess I don't focus on like the challenges necessarily.
Sure.
You know?
And but what about things like work-life balance? Because agency life can get very difficult at times when it comes to the amount of work and the amount of hours that you have to spend on something and revisions and, you know, making sure that we're meeting the deadlines for air dates, et cetera, et cetera. How do you handle that in terms of your work-life balance, or does it, to you, it doesn't matter because you love what you do?
Well, I think it's mostly the latter. To expand upon it, you know, I have a lot of autonomy in my role, which I value a lot. I think that you know, being in these assistant roles at talent agencies, again, I can only speak from my experience, but, you know, I'm not answering phones all day. I'm not, you know, there's no one breathing down my neck, you know. I had a lot of trouble in that kind of position because I always felt like I could be doing more, or I wasn't working at my full potential, you know, even despite how young and green I was, you know. So I value that autonomy so much, and you know, it's a creative space. So you're not going to be working 9 to 5, but that also doesn't mean you're clocking in, you know, at 9 in the morning and then are at your desk, you know, for 8 hours, right? So maybe I am going to be doing something at 8, 9 o'clock, but maybe I'm not doing something from 2 to 4 p.m., right? So, you know, it's, in that sense, it's fluid. Is that the right balance for everyone? Probably not. You know, that's why there are a lot of different positions. For me, it works, you know, and I really like working towards projects, working towards a final product to celebrate in the end. So it's, for me, it's always a thrill
I love that.
to do that. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you get to scratch that itch for the graphic component because you're in an advertising agency?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think I have friends there who are designers, who are art directors, creative directors who have grown from the art space. And I think just being, you know, connected with them, that for me scratches the itch a bit. Sometimes you know, someone will say, well, what do you think about this? Or I'll say, I think it looks, you know, I mean, it's like, it might be outside of my role, so I don't want to, you know, I'm sometimes hesitant to contribute, you know, my thoughts on something outside of my creative space. But yeah, it's funny you say that, because I think that goes a long way for me. I think I kind of like just can blend easily with
like you're around it, like you get to feel the creative juices of the graphic component in and around you. Like you have to experience that in everything that you do, because you're seeing the boards, you're seeing the rough cut, the edits, the final cut, all of the art involved with it. You get to be part of that process. So yeah, I think there's a component of it that might be scratching that itch. Do you get to do any of your art stuff? Are you still, like, I've asked you about side hustle earlier.
Yeah. I mean, I don't make time for it. I think I've thought about, I've gone in and out of it over the years.
Okay.
I think it's as simple as I don't make time for it, which is somewhat of a shame. I think, you know, I know that if I want to go and get back into it, that's something that's there for me.
Yeah.
I can do it. I think living in New York, the way I choose to live, I think there's, you know, there's not a lot of downtime. And I like that, you know, my downtime is truly downtime, you know, it's really relaxing. And drawing actually, you know, is, I do think for the most part relaxing, but sometimes, you know, you just want to watch TV.
Yeah.
You know, you just want to really chill out, cook maybe, or, you know, so.
Yeah, I love to cook.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that, you know, saying a great word that you used, I think, was autonomy. I think there's something about the culture of agencies now where it's shifting from that, like, I need butts and seats, everybody's got to be here. I don't know if, you know, obviously COVID had something to do with that, where there's just been this kind of like release of everybody has to be in their seat at 9 a.m. to get done what we need to get done. And I think that in and of itself has created some work-life balance. There's some people who will take that to a whole other level and be like, I need to have all this time to myself. I don't want all this time off. But then other people are like, I just want to dig in and do this really intensely for this amount of time. But when I don't have to be, we can release and we can relax and we can do something else, create that balance kind of organically. Which is cool. I'm finding that a lot of agencies are adopting that culture where they're allowing people to have some autonomy. Is there a point at which being in an environment where you see that there are a lot of people, like you said, a lot of differences in people that you get to see and you're fascinated by that? Is there a point where it could get out of hand if the autonomy is given out too loosely at an agency?
Do you mean for myself or for others?
Both.
Both. Well, yeah, I think that there, you know, potentially are, people still need to learn, right? Like there's, you need to have, the whole mentor thing, I think is great. We had a mentorship program that, that internally. And I think, I don't know if like you can just be thrown in the deep end and know how to swim and survive. I think there's a balance. I think there's a balance between learning and having someone teach you. I needed that when I didn't know. I mean, I took the role as associate music producer. I didn't know anything. Right. I had a background in the professional workspace, I think, that helped me, transition from college life into that role, right? But I still needed to learn. But I think there's got to be a balance between learning and then a level of trust. And that level of trust is really important because I think, especially for younger folks getting into it, they need to feel like, they're there to do the job. They're going to do the job.
That's right.
If they're not going to do it, then they're not going to be there. So, why not give them that, if they have questions, hopefully they're going to ask the questions. Yeah. Hopefully they're going to feel empowered and they're going to feel like they can come to folks with more experience to say, hey, I need help, or can you tell me how to do this? Yeah. That's what you hope. Like to your point, using the words, word culture in the workspace, I think it's really important because, you want a culture that cultivates, that level of trust and a good a good environment,
where the lights don't go out.
Where the lights don't go out. Yeah.
Because you got to keep the lights on.
So I think, I don't know, I guess it's a long way to answer the question, but and then for me, I mean, it's like, up to me to I think balance that in a more senior position,
Yeah, I think it can boil down to personality. There are some people that are like, they need to have somebody kind of monitoring them to help push them along. Say, all right, have you done this? Are you still, getting this done, et cetera, et cetera. There's going to be some people who are just like, leave me alone. I'm going to handle it. It'll all get done. And they're very responsible and they don't need to be babysat to do stuff. And they just function better that way because of the way their brain works or what their personality is and how much they like to be around people, how much do they recharge around people versus being drained by being around a lot of people. So you're absolutely right. I think it depends on the person, it depends on the personality, it depends on how they grew up, how they, what they did in school, how they did in school. A lot of those things can contribute to whether or not they're the self-starter type and self-motivated or if they need a little push. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, I think that probably more of a management question on somebody who's trying to like handle operations and HR and personnel for sure. I'm sure everybody would have their opinion on that question. But I don't know, I think you bring up a great point when it comes to the mentorship component. I think if there's a time and a place where you can be given that autonomy because you are at a more of a senior level, but when you're still starting out, you need to be around the people. But if all the mentors have autonomy and they're not in the building, then those other people don't get mentored. So.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I came into the role I'm at now in a more senior position. When I was first learning, I felt like I was really fortunate that I felt like I had mentors who taught me in a way that I always felt like I could come to them with questions. I felt welcome there, and it was a good learning environment. I didn't always have that. I'm not going to talk about any times, but, sure. But I think sometimes you take away from each experience what you can. I think there's, again, I don't want to make it overly positive just to be positive, but I think if you don't have that mentor, if you don't feel like you're being heard or seen in the way that you need to be, because we're all, like you said, we're all from different backgrounds. Right. We all have different ways of learning, and that doesn't mean one way of learning or doing is better than the other.
That's right. It
means that, I think, if you're going to hire someone, they're going to, be brought into, your culture. You need, you need to figure out a way also to cater to them, so that,
sure.
You can work together and figure out, well, then, if they have a different way of learning, of doing, how do we incorporate that? How do we actually, take advantage of that and, use that to propel us forward, not necessarily, force them into
conforming to whatever your ideal is.
Right, because then we're all the same, doing the same thing, right?
I love that.
So I think that's really important. I've been in scenarios where I've had that. I've been in scenarios where I haven't had that. And the learning from there is, I think the takeaway is find a place where you can get that. And I'm not saying that's easy.
But it sounds to me like, given your experiences that have shaped your view on what a mentor should be, is that you would give good mentorship. Are there opportunities for that at your agency?
Well, as we talked about, I'm a, sort of a one-person operation. That being said, one way that I, conduct, I guess, my role is that I think music is something that a lot of people are passionate about. I think we could go and talk about, the universal language, or the fact what music can do for all of us. I mean, hey, I talked to someone this past year, said, she, not in my work, not in just different, who said that she and her husband don't listen to music. They don't like music. That's okay. It's definitely not going to be for everyone, but I think a lot of people do like music.
Yeah.
So I guess, going back to your question, if, there are people who are interested in music, and there have been people who have come to me and they've just said, hey, I'm interested in music. Like, I'm curious about what you do. Well, then, I like to, it's like, well, let's talk about it. What do you want to learn? Or maybe there's a way that they can engage more in what I'm doing a little bit. Have a role in either working with, folks who were hiring, in the original music space. Maybe they come up with a song idea, I mean, I don't like to, because I am the only person who does what I do at the agency, I also like to, use that as a way to bring others into the fold who aren't, doing what I do, or on my team, so to speak. Yeah. It's like, we can all be a part of this, because I think music is fun, and I want people to be interested in it. And if they are, how can, what can we do together? Or what can I teach you? Or what can I learn from you? That's another,
I love that.
Potentially a separate conversation. But because a lot of people are interested in music, I've learned so much from others,
Great.
Who are not the music person,
Go back to your time as a assistant agent. Mm-hmm. Did you ever meet any celebrities? Did you ever go to a Diddy party? That's what I'm trying to get. I'm just kidding.
Absolutely not. Did I meet any? God, I mean, I probably right off the top of my head. I'm not sure what. Yeah, who? Yeah, I don't have any that stand out at the time.
And then how about now at Anomaly?
Yeah, gosh, it's so funny. The celebrity aspect is really not like coming into the fold for me. But
biggest song you got to license?
Biggest song was
or just a big moment in general in your career, doing what you do.
Well, there's a lot that I really look back on. I mean, wow, there's that's a whole. So many. I mean, like,
three.
What's that?
Give me three highlights.
I'm just gonna rail through stuff. I don't know if it'll be three, but like, started off at Gray. I remember the executive creative director for Pantene. She was she believed in me. So she was someone who was like a mentor outside of my day-to-day report.
Wow.
Which was super.
So a client?
No, she was the creative director at the agency.
Oh, got it.
But she was the lead executive creative director role on that brand, so Pantene. And I think I mean, she was just such a cool, inspiring person to work with. She let me kind of do what I wanted to do. Obviously, she'd have to approve everything, but also I was like maybe 25, 26. I mean, I was younger. So I remember I had the opportunity to do a lot of cool stuff. I remember I licensed a song by this artist, Kalela, who I'm a huge fan of. I'll never forget that when we like made a deck and we sold through her song and we got it in a Pantene commercial. We had her producer revise the song for us, so it was tailored to our cut.
Nice.
I remember licensing, again, same brand, Pantene. We licensed a Bauer song. I'm still in touch with his management team today, a guy I connect with. So it was cool. I got to meet him through that. There were some others too that stands out. Working with friends, kind of like whenever I remember I had my friend sing on a Volvo commercial, and I remember he got his SAG check. I guess for people listening, Screen Actors Guild,
Great.
You get residual payments, which are payments for based off of the media buy, right? So based off of the airings, you get paid a certain amount of money. He got paid enough money that he took it and made his next album with it, which made me super happy. I mean, I knew part of doing this whole thing, right, is like you're giving money to musicians, hopefully, right? I mean, that's so that hopefully that's who's getting it. But that was the first time where there was someone direct who I knew and I was passionate about his music. I actually ended up playing in a band with him later, but he's a great singer, great songwriter, and so getting him to sing on that, getting him paid, then having his new album be made from that was like
that's
really honestly heartwarming. So there's that. Anomaly. I mean, like, it's kind of wow. I've talked about some of these spots multiple times, but we've had work for Johnny Walker, for Don Julio, for Crown Royal. I mean, getting to work with Ari Lennox for Crown Royal, that was a dream come true to essentially make a music video for that brand during COVID. Brittany Howard for Johnny Walker during COVID. We made a mashup for Johnny Walker of Aerosmith, Run DMC, Lou Reed, and Loretta Lynn, all songs about walking.
Historical spot.
I think it was, I mean, the creative director on it, she's an absolute like legend. And, that was just, those experiences, all of those are like, it just makes work feel not like work.
That's it.
Amen. Which is kind of the dream, I think.
It is the dream. So good.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, if somebody wanted to get into this type of role in New York, is it one of those roles that there's space in the industry for, do you think? Or do you think that this role maybe is starting to, based on the industry, starting to kind of not be as popular? If somebody's like into this, do they maybe going to TV is more sexy? Maybe forgetting about commercials. Is there another way in? What are some of the other areas, if you have a passion for music that you know of, that other people can explore if it's not being a music supervisor or music producer at an agency?
Wow. Well, I mean, music in general, do you mean? Or yeah. I mean, well, there's a lot out there, right? And there's probably a lot, to my point earlier, that I don't know about, which I think is exciting and also, maybe a bummer, because it's like you wish you knew everything, right? Well, firstly, to answer it, I think this role, I think there is a world. I mean, I think that where this does exist. I mean, does every ad agency or creative agency have a music supervisor? No. Would I like every agency to have one? Yes. I'd like to see more of it. But there are agencies, there are, trailer houses, there are independent supervisors, there's music houses, there's record labels and publishers. There are the DSPs, the digital, the space that's, the digital streaming platforms. There, is the live entertainment space at talent agencies, promoters, management companies. I think it's a small industry, but it's also a big one. There's a lot of different roles There's a lot of creative roles. There's a lot of business-oriented roles. I think if you can break into it, to get your foot on the ground in it, that's the first step. Maybe you won't be doing exactly what you want to be doing. Maybe you will. I mean, that's great if you are, but maybe you won't, and that's okay. You can figure out how to parlay that into something else.
Yeah, so, I love what you said about the connections and I think your natural propensity to be into people first is how you've discovered to get to where you are now. I think that's what's been consistent in your story is all of the people along the way, from college to your first job, your time at summertime with your summer job, all these things, and even what you talk about now, all the people that you meet, the people that you're genuinely friends with, going out, having those experiences, all of those are feeding in to what you do on a daily basis, but also it's what fed into how you got to where you are right now initially. And whether that experience is from college or whether it's from a non-educational component, your love for people has been the thing that's been most consistent. I hope people take note of that in terms of this conversation, because that's been an integral part of you getting to the next point in your career, but then also being able to sustain a long career at a position that you love and that you've had the time to grow there and get the autonomy that you love and still working with people and loving people. And then all of these are formulating, your happiness in terms of what you get to do outside of just the music component, which is your passion and your love, yes, but that your connection to people has been integral to that. So I love that.
Yeah. I mean, people is everything. People are everything. I mean, it's, you may be the best person suited for a role, or you may be the best at what you do, but if no one knows you, then unfortunately likely won't get into that role. Maybe you will, I mean, but literally, I mean, if no one knows you, then how are you going to get to that position, right?
Yeah.
So I think that you have to have an interest, you have to be passionate. And I don't think the word good is sort of a stale word, but you have to have, I think, a skill set maybe that can allow you to stand apart. But with that, you kind of put all that toolkit together, along with the connections.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
In terms of understanding the business aspect, because you talk about the business component, how difficult was that for you to navigate through this? I mean, you said you've had mentorship, understanding the business component. Is that the part at this point now excites you still? Or that's the part like, oh man, I just want to do the music, forget about the business?
Everything excites me.
That's a great answer.
And I think in this role, having a balance and having that excitement for both the business aspect and the creative aspect, I think that you will find more success if you have a balance of that. That doesn't mean you need to know every single aspect of the business, every single aspect about the creative portion, but having an interest in both, I think, will propel you forward, because a lot of these roles do have that balance. There are some that are more focused on one aspect or another, but if you have both, then you could do those too, right? You could kind of say, well, I think I'm more of a business oriented person, so I'll veer off in that direction. Or I think I'm more creative, so I'll go this creative route, right? But if you have both, you could do that, and then you could take on the roles that need that balance. I mean, for me, it was working at ICM where I had to look after so many contracts constantly. And I had to make sure that they were typed out correctly, worded in the way that my manager wanted them worded, or I'd have to go back and do them all over again.
Wow.
Which I didn't really like doing, but I learned a lot. I had to do it,
Which is a skill set that you've added to your tool belt that you're using today now. 'Cause
Definitely.
there are definitely contracts involved with what you do right now.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's
so there were deal structures, there was money, there was, negotiations that happened there, and I think, I had to learn all of that. And, I took that with me. And, today I think the business aspect, there's a whole legal component. I find law interesting. I never was interested in it before I, dove into this world, but there's a lot of, it's like, I'm curious about it, and it's always changing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, now there's AI, it's like,
Yeah.
there's all these new worlds, and with that, there has to be some sort of, there's legal ramifications. There's got to be law around it,
Yeah.
So I find it really interesting, and I also think that the two worlds of business and creative help each other, right? So if I have a certain budget to do something, or I just have general knowledge of what certain productions will cost, or how much a song costs, or an artist, or what have you, I can use that knowledge to connect back with my creative teams and manage expectations around what's feasible, right? Because that's not what they're focused on. They have to focus on writing scripts, art direction, putting decks together, presenting these ideas potentially over and over again, to sell them through. And they've spent so much time doing that. And by the time they finally sell something through, then it gets handed off to us. So, I want to be there to make sure that I have all the knowledge to make it the best possible, work that we can make it.
Amazing.
So, like, maybe we'll have all the money in the world. That's not usually the case. So how do I, put this puzzle together? How do I work with what I've got? Maybe, we sell through an idea that is going to cost more. But then if we're doing that, why is this idea the best? Why are we selling it through? So I'm there to help with that too. And then vice versa. I think, just having a creative mind, I think can, creative problem solving, I think works its way into business solutions too, right?
great.
Like, you can't always just say, this is how the book is written.
Right.
So I'm going to go follow steps A, B, C, D, E, F, and G in that order. Hey, I don't know, maybe you can cross out a few of those letters, go backwards, like, who's to say, right?
great.
And that might get you
The solution you need.
solution you
Yeah.
need
It's good.
quicker and in a better, manner. So
good.
Yeah.
And you came back to that word again, curiosity. I think that's the recipe for all of this, is that having the curiosity means that you have the stomach to go on that little mini deep dive into a legal contract to see what's there, to make sure that your production is protected, to make sure that the artist is protected, the agency is protected, and everybody. The whole point of the legal document is so that everybody's in agreement on how this is moving forward.
That's
and
right.
it's very clear. And if you forget what it is, it's in the paperwork. You can go recall it. So I love that. You touched on AI, and I wanted to ask you this question. From your perspective, where you sit at your agency, what do you feel about AI, and what is your agency's kind of rule on AI when it comes to the music portion?
Right. Well, I play a role at the agency, so I'm not going to speak for the agency, but, I think I touched on it, and that's as far as I think I get right now. Okay. I think that it has day-to-day practical, application, right? Where, I'm looking for stems on a song. Either I can't get them quickly or they don't exist, but I can throw a track through, an AI splitter and get stems in 2 minutes. Maybe we were talking about this earlier, maybe the quality won't be perfect, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So if you need a digital solution, I think, for something in any space, I don't know, it seems like it's probably there via AI right now, right?
Yeah.
So that, I think, has been helpful and fun to use. That being said, I haven't seen, I've explored for fun, creating music via AI. But to go back to the legal aspect, like there are reasons why we're not, using that music now. And
Right.
Is it faster or better, I think, than working with the partners I'm working with today, the humans I connect with, all over the world to source music or create music? No, I don't think it is. Will we get there? Maybe, but that remains to be seen. So
If there was a point where you could get there, would you still prefer to work with the humans versus working with AI, for example, on creating an original piece of music? If the quality was equal to that of what a human could do, would you still want to use it?
I mean, I guess the what ifs are tough for me. It's not. And like I said, I do think, I really stand by it. I think the people are everything. So the quality would have to be there, and it would have to be faster. And that would mean that it would have to be, oftentimes I'm having conversations with people, right? I am listening to a lot of music.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I can replace that with AI. Maybe the AI can listen to all of the music for me and decide what's best, but I don't like that,
That's it.
So
Is it taking the fun out of it? There's something magical about the discovery of giving a human, for example, from my position on the original music side, giving a fellow composer a brief and seeing how they interpret that, giving it to 5, 6, 10 different people and seeing how they interpret that, waiting for it to come back, and that visceral response to what every individual did and how different it is, and knowing that a human did that, and you can be excited about that and communicate that excitement to said writer, composer, singer, songwriter, and that exchange of enthusiasm on a project. I think for the first 1 or 2 or 3 iterations of asking a robot to do it and you get something from a prompt, that's pretty cool. But once you do it a few times and you don't have that same interaction, there's something that's missing for me still.
That's right. And I don't think, I think culture is, paramount in our industry. And I don't think AI can replicate culture.
Yeah.
I think humans, humans create culture. And, you think about memes, think about meme culture, how it's passed down. I mean, you're talking about giving briefs to different composers, how memes are created, how they're like dispelled, how they evolve. And a lot of this sometimes is like it's bizarre. Sometimes it's not pretty. But that's what makes it great. That's like what the sort of like uncertainty sometimes, and why sometimes stuff just pops off is it's unexpected, but that's, I think, what makes humanity exciting.
Yeah.
So I don't really think AI, some of the imperfections that we as humans, I think, love because they really enhance the quality of a product, I don't really see AI doing that. Now, we're responsible for AI. So it's possible that it'll get close. But believe it or not, I mean, I think that we're faster. I think that it's going to always be catching up. I don't think it's going to be creating. So there's that. Everyone's always talking about, and I'm not here to I don't want to disparage AI. I think it is interesting. It does have its applications, and I think it'll, we're going to continue to be using it.
Sure.
And it's going to be a tool, and it's going to help us. I know friends who, again, in the art space, it's helping them do things faster day to day that they've never been able to do before. So that's amazing. But can it really just replace us? That's where I think no. I think the answer,
Yeah, where it excites me personally about AI is the ability to scale what we're already doing. So I'm excited for the tools, like you said, the tools to be in the hands of the creators that is going to allow them to get the ideas out quicker. We've already experienced it in music. there was a time when you had to wait for the 2-inch tape to rewind back and start over again to play it. There wasn't this double space bar hit and you're at the beginning of the song again. There were times when we had to wait for things to happen, and we had to wait for things to be recorded, and we'd have to wait for it to be dubbed. Now you can just fly files across the internet instantly. We used to have to take tapes and have a courier come and pick it up on a bike and take it across town for it to be reviewed. Right? There was a time when things were moving slower, and the ability to make what we already do faster and get it to where we need it to be faster, that's exciting to me. Replacing people, I'm not trying to replace people. I love that. But having those same people able to deliver faster so that they can get on to the other thing that they want to do, be it being with their family, being home for dinner, getting more work done so they have more success and they have, the tools that they need, i.e. the money to sustain a living, to, have their family be all right and everybody fed well and doing the things that they want to do in life and society. That's the part that excites me.
That's exciting. And I think the other thing that I would say that is exciting is, what it can be used for as a creative tool for folks who may have ideas but are unable to communicate them. And that could be something as simple, and obviously there are tools in music that, we've been working with for a while now that already do this, but You're not a drummer. You don't know how to play drums. You can't afford a drum kit. You don't have the space for a drum kit. So AI can do the drums for you. I mean, that's a bad example because we have been doing that. But, what if you have, melodies in your head? You don't know what those chords are. You don't, you just have something, you have a creative mindset. I think some of the most fun musicians I've played with they're not even good musicians. They just can do a certain amount to get there, but they have a really creative sensibility about music. And so they're good songwriters, and they can communicate just enough. But what if you can't even do that? You don't know how to play a guitar at all. You don't know how to play piano. You can't play drums. You just have ideas for music. You're passionate.
Know what you like. You know what you like. You know what sounds good.
You know what you like.
Or at least what sounds good to you.
Right.
And sometimes it's that randomness, and it's the unknowing that creates something that's phenomenal.
That's right. So what if you could be in Nebraska, and you are into something from somewhere on the other side of the world. You have a passion for it, but you don't have access to any of the tools. But now, like AI, there's a platform that you can communicate with it, and it can help you create. Now, I mean, this could be divisive, right? I don't know. I mean, you're not a musician maybe, but you have ideas. So you now maybe you can be the next big artist because you have a tool that's going to help you
bring ideas
to life.
Yeah.
When you otherwise didn't have the means to.
That's it. Look at sample culture. They said that the people who were sampling records in the hip hop world, that they didn't have any talent because they weren't playing the instruments. But it would take a certain mind to find a certain excerpt from an amazing piece of music and turn it into this completely different and new work that had a different set of drums added to it or different instruments added to said samples, and it created a whole new art form.
That's really exciting.
It's really exciting.
So that's, to turn into something that is, positive and something to look forward to.
Yeah.
There's maybe new art forms that are going to come out of this.
Yeah.
And people who otherwise wouldn't be in those spaces now being able to join and be a part of it and maybe find success too.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like to them. So
I love it.
That's cool.
It's good. I love how your outlook doesn't seem bleak.
No, it's not bleak. It's more of I just wouldn't say I'm an expert, and it's
Nobody is.
Yeah. Well,
with AI right now, nobody's an expert.
Yeah.
But I think the people who are going to potentially create a whole new position are this thing that they call the prompt engineer.
Right.
The person who knows the right input to get the desired output
right.
in various spaces. are the ones that are going to have something figured out.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know? So you and I are both given the same tool. Let's just call it a GPT at this point. And you may input something into it and you're going to get a certain result. I may input something else into it and get another result. Whatever inputs we're giving to said GPT, that's going to determine what the outcome is. And I think the next level of learning or education that's happening right now is finding people in specific niches who understand how to run the prompts in such a way that you get the desired outcome. Repeatable desired outcomes, tweakable desired outcomes, outcomes that are going to help you scale whatever said business is, because now you can do it exponentially faster, more output, larger output, more variety. I think the most exciting thing for me in the AI space is helping to establish something from nothing and then being able to expand on it from there. You know, it's like when you start a playlist and then you're given, like on Spotify, I love how they give you some, what do they call it, suggestions for your playlist. Mm-hmm. I love that because it just starts to spark things quickly, where rather than just pulling it out of thin air, now all of a sudden you get a few prompts and then you get some feedback, and then from that feedback you're able to add on top of it, and then lightning speed the output. And in a business like ours where, you know, it is fast and furious, what are those tools that are going to help get us answers 24 hours before a client pitch, 12 hours before a revision is due? You know, those are the things that excite me about where this is going, because now we can fill in those answers and, like you were saying earlier, find solutions to the problem quickly.
That's right. And it's a way to, it's a thought starter. You know, it's a way to, and it's like, for, you asked what I'm a department of one. There are times when I have to think creatively on my own. Obviously, like, I'm talking with people day in, day out, but when it comes to doing what I do, I'm doing that. You know, I'm maybe working with you. I may be working with a music company, but you know, oftentimes when I'm doing searches, like, I'm just going at it. I'm taking a brief, and I'm starting from scratch. And sometimes AI is a great help to just say, hey, like, I need some thought starters on songs about XYZ or genres to, you know, dive into on this. And then, you know, you go from there. Like, if you're on a DSP, you're on Spotify, for example, and, you know, you have some suggestions. You're like, maybe I'll check this out. Maybe you don't like that, but then you go to, you know, similar artists and you find, you know, someone, and then you're like, oh, they just released an album in 2024. You check out the album, it's your new favorite album of the year. So
Amazing. It's
not necessarily like going to give you the answer. Maybe it will, but it definitely can, like you said, be a way to start.
But it still requires the filter of your experiences, your understanding, your taste, your education. There are still lots of things that need to be filtered through whatever the output is. It's got to still go between those ears.
That's right.
And I think that's the thing that, I don't know, for me, that's the part that doesn't make me scared when it comes to AI, is because I'm so confident in what I know I've accomplished and established with my own taste and understanding over the years. That's why people want to work with me. That's why people want to work with you. It's for your understanding and knowledge. Okay, it may give you 12 tracks that maybe all of them could work, but did you know XYZ about this artist and the history of it, and why maybe that's not a good choice because they've got this court case pending, or, like, you know, you never know what it is, but there's so much more insight into what the issue is, that yes, the core prompt is going to give you a result, but you got to go beyond that initial result.
Right. And then to what our point, what we're saying is there becomes just a really useful tool, you know, that can help accelerate things and, you know, enhance the work. And so,
So, next 5 years for you, are you looking that far down the road career-wise?
You know, I think about it. It's, I don't know. I live year to year, day by day, kind of. That's how I am. You know, I'm a kind of day by day sort of person. So, and I think, you know, I think down the road, but I'm also just kind of trying to do now, you know, do the best I can in what I'm doing, you know, establish new connections, stay curious. I don't mean to say that all the time, but it's like I am, you
I love
know,
that.
I think
No,
hopefully
my
I can,
favorite words. So good.
you know, hopefully I can continue to do that. I think as you get older, some people lose that, you know, you become jaded. Sometimes it's hard to avoid that, but I don't think there's any reason why, you know, you have to go down that path.
Yeah.
It's like people starting and we were talking about different endeavors before, people doing different things into their 40s, 50s, 60s, what have you. It's like, it happens. And I think with, you know, our generation now, I think it's going to be different, you know, when we're into those age groups, because, you know, we're not the generations of the past where people did the same thing forever. And
Yeah.
I think that that's totally fine, you know. In fact, if you're doing what you like, then that's great, actually.
Yeah.
You know, so, but it doesn't have to be that way. For me, I don't know. I'm kind of like along for the ride.
I love it.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you're happy and you're having a good time and you like what you're doing, you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
I don't get any sense of you being jaded. That's good.
That's good. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure having you. You are a wealth of information, and thank you for sharing so freely. I think a lot of people are going to get some inspiration out of this.
Thanks, Tyson. I
Ben
appreciate it, man.
Dorenfeld, thank you, buddy.
Thank you, man.
All right. That's
Cool.
awesome.